Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Creative Workshop with the Artist's Way. I'm Max Randolph, and here is our friend, our creative Sherpa, Damian Skinner. How we doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Like I was saying, I'm relaxed and had some meditation time, and I'm looking forward to tonight. We've got one really good conversation. I know for sure we're
Dude,
gonna have tonight.
like, so
So
the week 7 chapter kicked my butt. It
yeah,
was amazing. I've never felt so like zeroed in on like
yep,
that before. That was pretty wild.
good. Let me ask you
Just give
something
me a lot more
because
perspective.
I just started listening in. Hey, I just started listening in on another Artist Way class that's running that a friend of mine's teaching. So at any
Cool.
given time, I can be teaching one, going to one, two to three different classes, right? And this other class, they've been basically, I would say, complaining, but they've been saying that they feel picked on in this class. And I've heard people say, "Well, I feel like I'm being called out," or I feel, but it's I think with this class, it's the first time I've ever seen it's going kind of negative for them. Like they're feeling picked on, like almost made fun of from some of the things that are being said. So how has that registered with you? How's that been?
Well, that's fascinating. So I haven't felt that at all. I
Yeah,
like for me, it's the awareness.
right.
Awareness is a great thing, right? Just being able to acknowledge behaviors,
Yeah.
being able to accept certain limitations that you or others might have. That's good, rich stuff.
Yeah,
And
it
that
is.
introspection is something that we should all try to accomplish.
Yep.
And I've definitely not felt called out. I just feel hyper aware.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know what I mean?
That's a
And I can
great
only
term.
imagine that no two of these classes would even be recognizable.
Not at all. Not at
Oh,
all. They are, I'm telling you, out of every one, there's similarities between groups, but the difference is day and night because each group just kind of takes on its own energy and its own attitude. You know,
yeah.
it's interesting to me. There's a great quote. I can't think of it right this second, but introspection and self awareness is so important to every aspect of your life, but then if you're not careful, it can also destroy you. Like there have been times in my life where I was so introspective and so self-aware that I literally almost needed to find a way to like ease that. And I want to say that to people here. A lot of people, I think, go from one extreme to the other at first, like clueless automaton robot, then hyper aware. And you got
Mm,
to find a balance. You'll drive yourself crazy being super aware.
absolutely. Well, and like, I don't know, you've inspired an image for me, I'm going to explode if I don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So, the introspection I like to think about is like kind of going underwater, going below the depths, but you still need to come up for air or you're going to
Ooh, that's
drown.
good. That's good, dude. Absolutely. You
Cool.
know? Yeah, you dive down, you do some treasure hunting, but you better come up.
Being a kid,
That
remember when
treasure's not
the
very valuable.
lifeguard,
That's great.
would throw the rings out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're seeing some magenta down there, like, ooh, and you dive down, and then you get as a little kid, you get that panic moment. You're not like at the bottom where you can kick off yet, and you're just like,
Right.
oh god,
You're kind of suspended there. Yeah.
yeah.
Dude, that's such a great way to explain because typically, as I've said in the last couple of weeks, at this point in the book, a lot of people feel like they're just kind of trudging through this content. I have heard that over the years because those first five chapters are so explosive,
Yes.
that a lot of people, I feel like at this stage, are just showing up out of commitment, which, hey, you know, nothing wrong with that. That's not an insult. But I'm curious how many people are on here are feeling like this is hard work or like I'm intentionally looking for some of the negative feeling around,
Mm.
oh, it's Tuesday, it's going to be at 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock, wherever you are. If anybody wants to weigh in on that, because that's a really normal response to this much introspection.
I am
you know.
curious what the chat has to say about that. And
Me too.
also on another note, I love how the chat's like, "Hello, everyone," like
I know.
checking in with each other. Like,
Yeah.
we're like, how did we get so lucky with like this community of people like sharing bonds,
Well,
positive
dude, good
bonds?
people attract good people, and it's your community. So I think you guys have something to do with it, but I don't know. Um,
Ah,
so let me go ahead and kick off, and then help me, Max, because I'm going to read something. But if you see any comments coming up, let me know. Okay.
I'll do this.
All right. Cool. I do want to read a quote that's technically from last week's chapter, and everybody, I apologize for the technical issues. I shouldn't have them today. Um, yeah, yeah,
Feel less
for sure.
motivated. Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, this is the newness has worn off, and this book is crazy repetitive. This book, no matter what, we're saying the same thing every week. We're just saying it from a different perspective.
I kind of need that, which is kind of good because I don't hear it until it's at least 3 times.
Yeah. Well, here it's going to be said about 3,000, so you're going to get
Perfect.
it there. So, but there are people that come to this, and the other class, hey, the other class, they're really struggling with. Somehow they got the idea that this was a technique class. So,
Oh, well, I
like
guess
almost
technically it kind of is.
right, right.
You know,
It's and it says it in the book. It's a book of creative and spiritual recovery. So there's technique on how to recover, but this is not a artist technique like how to shade in your, this or how to get specifically what you want.
right?
Specifically, right about now is where people just feel like we're covering the same ground over and over. And
Mm.
what I can tell you, and it's fully intentional, watching my son go through Taekwondo, they spend a year and a half learning forms that they could never defend themselves with in a million years, you know? And then the last 6 months, they bring it all together. And these kids are amazed that they have these like muscle reflexes, right?
It's the proverbial Mr. Miyagi paint the house,
Yeah. I said
paint
that
the deck.
yesterday, dude. I said that yesterday. I was explaining that to one of my kids. I'm like, look, nobody likes chores. But what you're going to find out is these chores are actually really how you live your life. This is the Miyagi wax on, wax off moment. And they're like,
Right.
the what? you know.
You're so right.
Um,
Because I'll tell you what, morning pages has been difficult.
yeah,
Like I feel so like verbally dried up. Like I'm just
yeah,
like, oh, here we are again.
done with it. Yeah,
Yeah, well, like I feel a complete and utter lack of like without just treating it like a journal or like a
yep,
diary
yep,
or like my D&D session recaps.
yeah,
I'm having trouble like finding new ideas, new avenues to travel down. I feel very repetitive with my morning pages, and
yep,
that's hard for me
yeah.
because I like
Well,
newness.
yeah, I'm addicted to dopamine, and there is nothing really satisfying about writing the same crap over and over and over. A, it's early. B, we're writing. C, now it's the same stuff. And what I would encourage anybody that's feeling, I can tell you right now, everyone's feeling the same way. I don't even have to ask. But if somebody's just loving, like going to bed giddy that they're going to get up and do morning pages, you're the outlier. So let us know because the rest of us dread it.
Yeah.
But it really, there will be a time where all of a sudden it like unlocks a new pocket in your heart.
Ooh.
Like you're using this, you're using this, you're using this, you're using this. Oh my god, oh my god. And then, well, what is this? Because remember, morning pages are excavating. You're removing trash. Yep.
Jenna, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. This sucks.
Yeah. Those
Yeah.
are the vast majority of my morning pages. I mean, you guys already know I cuss a lot. You can imagine my morning pages. I mean, they could never be published. Um, so let me read this from last week, and then we'll move in here. So much of what we do in creative recovery may seem silly. We've talked about this. Silly as a defense our wet blanket adult uses to squelch our artist child. Beware of silly as a word that you toss at yourself. And I just want to throw this out there. How many of you have had that exact word? This is silly, or maybe ridiculous, or this is goofy, or, I guys, I've been doing this for 20 years and I still will get that, like, this is really silly, man. Like, how long am I going to do these morning pages? And then I'll have a breakthrough. See, I have a vantage point that you guys, some of you don't have yet. I've had those breakthroughs. So I have that energy to be able to move through it. Do you mind telling us what page? Yeah, that's great. Page 112 in my book, and some of the books are a little bit different. So it's on last week's chapter 112. Let me know if you find it. Right in the middle. Um, I love this. She says, creativity lives in paradox. Serious art is born from serious play.
See, when that popped up, I freaked out. I
Yeah.
loved that.
Yeah. And look, we've all seen it. This is one of my favorite stories. So it's a true story. Very, very famous music producer, mixer. He worked for Capitol Records for 20 something years. He talks about he's driving through LA headed to work, and he's got the radio on. He's sitting in traffic, of course, and it dawned on him after years and years that he hadn't listened to music in probably 8 years. He's been making music. Good. Awesome. He's been making music. He's been helping people put out some of the best music ever made. I
Yeah.
forgot how many number ones he produced and he engineered. But his point was, what got him into making music, he had abandoned and was only just making music. And by the way,
Right.
he was making other people's music, right? So it took him a while. This whole interview was him talking about how hard it was for him to get back to a natural place of just enjoying listening to music. And
It, it's
good.
hard, especially when you try to like monetize your talents, your given passions.
Yeah.
It really sucks it right out of you. The adulting really sucks
Yes.
the joy out of just about anything.
Yeah. Well, adulting is such a great term. I use that all the time. I love it. And, she's constantly reminding us that our artist is a child. There is
Mm,
no such thing as an adult artist inside of us. We
right.
have grown, our organism has grown into an adult around the child that still just only wants to create,
Yeah.
you know? And his secret, it's not that big of a secret, but once you hear it, he said it took him about a year to a year and a half, and then he decided he was going to just start going into discovery mode, looking and listening to music that he'd never ever heard of before.
Is he the tan guy with the kind of crazy
No,
white
that
hair?
guy, he's next level, man. I
That
love
dude
him.
is cool, man.
Yeah, and I have his book. I have his new book. Oh my God.
It's
I'm gonna
okay.
have to look.
It'll hit you at 3 in the morning. You'll have to text me.
Yeah, it'll come to me here in a minute. But I love that guy. I love everything he teaches. His book is fantastic. But what's better than his book are the interviews with him about his book. And the book just came out. I'll find the name and I'll send it in the Discord here in a little bit. But
Okay.
he's great. But
Okay.
so moving into this week's, you know, um, recovering a sense of connection. Some of her titles I feel are a little clickbaity and maybe misleading sometimes, because
Clickbait before clickbait. That was 20
yeah,
years ago. That's amazing.
I know, I don't know where I haven't heard that in a while, but the ideas a lot of time of what you think the chapter is going to be about, it rarely is.
Mm,
And so when I hear connection, I think about what we're doing right now: community, friends, connected to a sense of purpose. What this
yeah.
whole
Even
this whole chapter is about: reestablishing a connection to yourself. And that's really what the book stays on the rest of the way, you know.
this
So
chapter really got to me in like
yeah.
the best of ways.
Is there anything in particular, because we're just highlighting, we're just going over it, so there's no specific order. Is there
Yeah.
anything you can point out that really, like, when you say that, what was it that hit you so strong?
There are two things.
I know
Now,
perfectionism hit you.
oh, that's one of them. I'll leave that one for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, the practicing deep listening. So, and I've experienced this. I feel like so many of these lessons, and not all of them, obviously. I'm learning a lot here,
Yeah.
but some of these I kind of by practicing art every day of my life, by finding joy in just being a big kid
Yeah.
and allowing myself to be ridiculous. I've somehow found myself learning a lot of these things on accident.
Yeah.
But she's such a brilliant writer, and she's able to describe the things that I have experienced before, and the practicing deep listening within yourself, because there's some times where I'm trying to create this design. I'm trying to create this thing that makes this work, that makes the whole thing work, right? It ties the whole room together. Um, and sometimes it's like squeezing blood from a stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
The, man, sometimes I have to just figure out something else. I need to go on a walk. Like Beethoven wrote most of his music while just walking.
Yep.
Things will accidentally just trickle down, from the ether, rain down on you, and all of a sudden, pow, floors you
Yeah.
with a eureka.
Yes.
Um, like the deep listening was that whole part of that chapter was spot on. And then, of course, perfectionism.
Yeah.
And she stated that perfectionism, I always thought it was humility, right? It was me just being really hard on myself, and
Yeah.
you know, but it's actually a huge part of your ego.
Yeah.
I felt
I know.
so betrayed, but she's but she's right. Damn
Yeah.
it.
It's there's a term that I've been obsessed with recently, and it's the difference between capacity and identity.
Mm,
And that could take us down a whole road I won't go into right now, but I bring it up because you have the capacity of being a humble person.
yeah.
But we get caught up in the identity of all of these things. You have the
Mm,
capacity of being a blacksmith, the capacity of being an artist, you have the capacity of being a boyfriend, a husband, a son. You have the capacity of all of this, but you are not all of those things. And there's just something here around perfectionism, which is going to be the majority of what we talk about today, um, for all of us. There's something about perfectionism that gets deep into our identity. It
mm.
really is very, it has a real sinister nature to it, that it kind of gets in and winds around. Oh, there's a synchronicity. You're just
Yeah,
watching
no
TikTok about
kidding.
this. It winds its way around your heart and your soul until you believe this is what you are, and I'm have to be authentic, and I can't put anything out in the world unless it's authentic. See, I think perfectionism, a lot of time people have just taken being authentic too far, and they've now learned how to use it as an excuse to not put out art and to not create.
Mm.
And it's just another safe place to hide. I mean, I promise you, Max, I deal with perfection. Let me say this differently. I think from what I know of you, I've probably failed from perfectionism more than you have. And I've
Interesting.
shared a lot of those stories, but sitting with this information year over year and watching other people recover in other areas that I'm not and I'm struggling, one of the things that I've noticed is all I really want is to be safe and for no one to mess with me. That's really what I want. I want to sit somewhere, and when I have an idea, I want to go create it, but I don't want anyone to see it. I don't want anyone's opinion on it. It's not even for sale. I don't care. It's mine. And she talks about this. There's only one other person, kind of people on the planet that talk in terms of mine, 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 and it's little kids.
Uh,
That's mine. Give me mine, mine. And I have that internally. I have this. This is mine. Like, no one gets to look at this. And it's a
I feel like
way of
everyone
keep.
does, right?
What's that?
I feel like everyone has that, right? Because we're all little kids truly inside.
Yes. And that's where I'm going is I would assume the majority of the people watching this, either now live or later recorded, probably don't share even a quarter of their art that they create. And they probably share even less of the ideas of the art that they want to create. Most of us that are still pursuing art and creativity after so many people have learned to not mine is we're at the point now where we're like, you know what? I don't need to make a living from this. I don't need to be famous. This is my little secret. This is my thing.
Mm.
And I'm going to
Yeah.
do it over here. And yeah, it's cute and it's funny, but I might be able to sell it on Etsy one day. That's kind of the approach that most creatives I know take. I'm talking about professional produced screenwriters that still talk like this. My process. That's fantastic. That's greatness.
I'm loving the
Um,
chat.
oh yeah, it's the best part. So everybody is using this technique, and as you go through this book, not everything applies to everyone. I think this does. I think
Mm.
everybody has a straw man argument basically called perfectionism.
Mm.
And what some people, if you don't understand what I mean by straw man, I mean a fake argument, basically.
Right.
A Well, it's not right. It's not right. I personally have experienced more times than not when I go back and look at progress photos of whatever I'm working on or revisions of a script. Some of the older ones are better than what I ended up on.
Interesting.
And that's heartbreaking because you can't just take layers of paint off. I mean, at least with a script, I can go back and start working from there. But a lot of us don't know when to stop. And she has this great quote that you don't finish art, you don't finish a painting, you just choose an interesting place to stop.
Oh,
And as a film editor, I started first as a film editor. So I've edited, 30 some odd feature films, documentaries, TV, all that. What I can tell you is we have a joke and a saying as editors that you never finish, you just run out of time.
nice.
There's something here. There's something about this idea that it's polished and it's perfect. In the beginning of this class, Max, you were talking about your at your local watering hole, the chandeliers that you built, and you made a comment like, "I'll stand there and I'll see all the imperfections," and that really stuck with me for a couple of days. And I love the analogy that you can go into a place, look up at your art that's providing light for all of these people to be in relationship and connecting, and the only thing you're going to see is maybe a wrong hammer strike or a wrong something or other, right? That that's the nature of it, man. And I personally don't think perfectionism goes away. I think it's kind of like other things, to where it's like a tough love situation.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is we're always going to have the urge to do more and make it better.
Yeah.
But if you'll do some deep listening with yourself and ask yourself, does it need to be better, or am I hiding behind this? You'll get an answer every time. You know,
It's rough.
it is. But we act like we lie to ourselves. Only our conscious mind lies to ourselves. Our subconscious never ever really lies to us. And so if you're painting and you're going and you're in this perfectionist vicious loop, you're only there because you haven't stopped and talked with yourself and asked yourself. And so here's something I've had to do. I've shared with everybody, probably to the point of nauseum. I was a filmmaker, I got out of it, and then it was harder for me to get back into it. And what I had to do is form the habit. Every time I think I'm going to put a project down or walk away from a project, or, oh, I need to rewrite it for the 15th time today, I will stop and ask myself, am I hiding? And I ask it in a very loving way, almost like I'm asking a kid, hey, am I hiding? Am I just hiding behind that this needs another coat or this needs another revision? Am I just being scared? And for me personally, 95% of the time, I'm just scared. You know, um, it. I've known professional artists that are being paid; they make their living, where they have deliverables and the criteria of what they're going to deliver,
Yeah.
and then they over deliver, and then they get upset when the customer doesn't pay them more because they delivered more. You're the one that couldn't walk away from it, you know?
Dude, that is the story of my life.
Okay. All right. Now that I didn't know, so I'm not picking on you,
No,
but
no, but that's yeah, so I will work twice the hours that I'm allotted, you know, and then yeah, and then just oh my gosh, it's just wild. Oh, did we lose Damien? Oh no. I think he might have got a call. Oh, there, it wouldn't be interesting unless we had some type of technical difficulty or something like that. But yeah, the week 7 practice of deep listening. Now, so this is for you in the chat. Do you ever experience when you're trying to come up with like what to draw or how do I write this new song on my lyre or whatever instrument you might play or so on and so forth when you're just really stuck, stop being cruel to himself. Just really placebo. Oh, that's incredible. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments right now. He just had to stop the surgeon from being cruel to himself. I just started noticing people being super self-deprecating. Yeah, what's with that? Self-deprecating thoughts. Let me finish my thought. We'll get back. So, um, yeah, that listening, quieting your, quieting you, like the productive part of your mind, trying to, like I said, squeeze blood out of a rock to make something happen here and give yourself space. Start working on something else, or go on a walk, go meditate, go take a bath or something like that. That's usually when I get my best ideas and my huge breakthroughs is when I'm able to force myself to just kind of stop thinking about it. And it might take a day, it might take a week, but that was a big one that hit me really hard. Not personally hard, but like that really resonated because I found that out so many times. Um, Oh, and then I took some notes here about. Oh, here we go. Damon will be reconnecting soon. Perfectly. I'm trying to train myself to stop doing. Oh, that's epic. I want placebo. I love having you here. This is so wonderful. It's made me really aware of it. Yeah, that sensor, that internal sensor, and not that. Hey, like I don't know what we're talking. I'm not a student here, but from what I found, sorry, I'm recovering from a cold. I have a little bastard cold right now, but that sensor is so cruel, so just deeply hurtful. I but I'm gonna sneak past Damien a little bit. We're gonna talk about. Oh, there we are. Nope, never mind. He heard me. Let's see. Is he with us? There he is.
Yay! Dude, I'm sorry. I have
No,
no
you're fine.
idea.
Did you get a call?
No, huh? It just I all of a sudden it froze and I could hear you talking and then it dropped. So,
Yeah, he
yeah.
felt himself summoned. Yes.
Yeah.
I was gonna sneak ahead to week 8 because I have some lovely notes here. And
Okay,
but
cool.
no, we're good.
So, let me read a few things. This will help me kind of get right back on path with my brain because I don't do well with distractions.
Oh,
It takes me a
100%.
minute to get my brain going again.
Well, I was
Um,
talking about just that practicing deep listening and giving yourself time to just like really like listen to yourself, but also give yourself the amount of grace to stop thinking so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. She says perfectionism is refusal to let yourself move ahead. It's a loop, an obsessive, debilitating, closed system that causes you to get stuck in the details of what you are writing or painting or making and to lose sight of the whole. It's a closed system. You will not go anywhere with this.
So, Damien, I have well, at least for me, I have a perfect example of exactly that, and it's a visual one. So,
Okay.
like, I never like to show welds in any of my work, so it looks like the material just grew that way.
Okay.
Everything's just, like you'll never see a weld usually if I have anything to do with it. It just looks like somehow this was sand casted. This entire thing. I like to create that level of splendor and wonder in my work because sure it looks great from back here, but the closer you get, I want it to be just even
Sure.
more obscenely bizarre,
Yes.
right? Like how the hell did this get here? Anyways, so I take a bird to it, and I like I flesh out everything really nice, and everything's blended like it was molded clay.
Yeah.
And I'll spend tens of hours on that silly little spot. And we're talking like the size of a pinhead against an elephant.
Wow.
You know, like it's like I'm so zeroed in that I
Yeah.
totally lose perspective on everything else, like the
Yeah.
whole everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Buddy, I mean, the closest thing that I have to that is in filmmaking, where we've all heard these stories. Stanley Kubrick had Tom Cruise ring a doorbell 98 times.
Right.
You know, um, and everyone calls him genius for it. You know what I'm saying? And I come from the world where I want to read that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dee's portrait work is incredible. So I could definitely see her just obsessing about every little mark,
Oh my God.
you
Well, you,
know?
you literally, it's almost like you got to give your eyes a rest, not just your physical eyes, but your internal eye gets
Yeah.
so hyper focused, you can't see anything outside of that,
You got to kind of back up a little bit and gain some
Yep.
perspective again, you know?
Yeah. And there are directors, yes, they are. They use the excuse, I can't help it, I see what I see. This is what I've always heard. When someone's like, I've done 15 takes of somebody walking across the street. I'm an indie filmmaker. Someone's walking across the street once, right? And then we're moving on. Um, but there's an obsessive thing, and I want to talk a little bit about the identity. The This can be offensive to some people, and I obviously I don't mean it to be. But have you ever known those people that are more about living the way they think they're supposed to be than they are just living? You know, um, for example, because of their
Yeah.
identity, right?
Yeah.
So kids growing up, they'll watch something on the Disney Channel, and on the episode of Maddie and whatever the hell it is this week, the middle daughter isn't being seen at the house. Next thing you know, your daughter who watched that is walking around talking about how, well, I'm just the middle daughter. They take on the identity. And we see kids do that, and we call that just a maturity issue. But again, remember, just because we physically matured does not mean we matured every place else.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, a lot of artists, like the directors I'm talking about, um, here I am insulting Stanley Kubrick. This is fantastic. I feel for me, and it comes across to people that are involved in the work and they're out there sweating and freezing and whatever's going on. It feels more like you're stroking your ego. Like I'm such an this is my identity. I struggle, or it needs to be perfect. It's not that they're into perfectionism. They're more into what they think an artist is supposed to act like, right?
Interesting.
An artist is supposed to be an alcoholic or a drug addict. An artist is supposed to be sexually, all over the place and crazy. And also, an artist really, they just can't finish that. Well, that's shit we grew up watching. It's not
Yeah.
true. It's not. That's a stereotype.
Right.
You know, um, you look like somebody. You look at some of these artists who did go through hell, and they disfigured themselves, and they did all this horrible stuff for their art, and now.
Oh, interesting. Right.
But the minute we're not in flow state and things feel hard and we're having to really just kind of work on it, people splinter. Some people go, I'm not good enough and I'm struggling too much. And other people go into this perfectionist route. It's like, I can make it better no matter what. I can be better than I was last time. There's all this like internal argument going on
Right.
that nobody is saying that to you. It's within. And a lot of times it's just from the stuff we've identified with. You know,
Hmm.
um, it's if you believe that it's going to be hard to find a mate in your life, then every date you go on, you're bringing that belief to that date.
That's a good point.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, that's
So,
kind of the power of manifestation, right? Like
yeah,
an aspect of it. You know what I mean?
yes, yeah. Well, I try not to use rhyming terms too much, like that real commercial where everything has to rhyme. Anthony
Yeah, yeah.
Robbins kind
Everything
of
has to be a
approach.
catchphrase.
Yeah, but there is one that I love, and that is where your attention goes, your energy flows, and it's just so true. I have to let it rhyme. Like
Right.
you know, you're going on a date and you're looking for the reasons why you can't date this person. You're gonna find them.
Yeah.
If if you're doing art and you're looking for what's wrong with your art, you're going to find it. So, who are you creating the art for? One of the things that she says that I find interesting, and this is a real challenge for people such as yourself, Max, that are, you make a living from your art. Absolutely, 100%. That's a good rhymer, and we'll keep it. I
Good
like that.
rhymer.
Your vibe attracts your vibe. Tribe. She says that perfectionists, a lot of times, that they are married to the logic side of their brain. We often get mired in getting the details right. We correct our originality. This is so powerful. We correct our originality into a uniformity that lacks passion and spontaneity. Don't fear mistakes, Miles Davis told us. There are none, which, you know, he's kind of the shit. So I think it's powerful coming from Miles Davis. But
Yeah.
if we're being clear on what we're after, we are we're creating something to express something from ourselves. So the longer we work on it, the further away there's that bell curve, right? So we
Right.
get that original spontaneity, that's the word. And then we keep jacking with it and jacking with it and jacking with it to where now it loses its spark. It loses its life. Guys, I have bought art from street vendors that anybody would look at and go, that's not good art. But I don't want to say, oh, it spoke to me. It caused an emotion, and I wanted to be able to look at that and cause that emotion. Was it good art? Not really, but it had created this state in me.
Yeah.
So we're talking about two different things. We're talking about there's commercial art, making a living. That's a whole different conversation than what we're talking about right now. We're talking about
Right.
when you have something that you want to create, knowing when it's time to stop. And the trick to that is just find a really interesting place. It's the same thing in a screenwriting session. You don't know the ending. You just wonder what's a good place to leave everybody on this story.
Right.
So
It's hard to do.
it is.
That's
It
very hard.
it's practice. And for somebody like you, I mean, Max, you have the stereotypical perfectionism kind of a thing. And I mean that sort of as a compliment. It's like a backhanded compliment,
Right.
But
Hello.
yeah, it's does it come from ego? Yes. But is it coming from a sincere place in our ego? Yes. You know, it's just, God, I love it when people start literally putting the words right in my mouth. I was just about to say that. Most perfectionists that I've worked with that really struggle, they're still trying to prove something to someone.
Yeah.
And that someone probably isn't even in our lives anymore
Nope.
because we wouldn't be trying to prove it to a good person. A good person doesn't make you want to prove yourself. So if you're
Yeah.
still trying to prove it, it's probably for some ass clown in the back of our life that
Yeah.
we got away from, but subconsciously, we're still trying to prove ourselves.
Man, and that actually brought me. This brings me to week eight. Wait, week eight. I don't know if you want to go there or not,
We can't.
but
Let's
we
just
like,
go organically with whatever you got.
oh, well, like surviving loss, and you like acknowledging creative wounds.
Yeah.
You know, and when the way though, so from the perspective that she came from in the chapter was like critics. We're talking like, oh man, the chat's on fire. Actually,
Yeah, it is.
Damien, respond to some of them.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Let me finish hearing your thought, and then I'll go
Okay.
back and repeat that again.
You got it. So, she was in the chapter, sorry, chapter of week 8. She was coming from the perspective of these academics that were reading her work and judging on a very academic, scholarly level.
Right.
My background, I didn't have anybody that was. I mean, there was definitely plenty of artistic people around me, but there was no one that was trained in art. Like, there's no like, I didn't have a single critic.
Yeah.
All I had was people that didn't know anything about art, and which I think was, I don't know which is worse,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
because I was trying to create something truly different my entire life, and people would just stare like, "Cool," maybe they'd have their
Right.
beer.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? Like, that seems dumb, and
Yeah.
I'm just sitting. I felt like I was the only person that spoke a singular language
Right.
among it's just like, what the hell? I felt
Yeah.
lost. It was
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Well, the wounds and 7 and 8, these two chapters go together effortlessly. We can flow back and forth.
Perfect.
7 and 8. I mean, talking about the wounds. First and foremost, most of us are running so fast that we won't ever even take an account of past wounds, much less, much less sit with them and provide a space for them. You
And there's
know.
so many, right? Like,
Oh,
if you start looking back, like,
yeah,
it's you're a pincushion, right?
yeah, yeah,
But some of the big ones I was thinking about earlier, and it's just like, God, growing up around people that knew nothing about what I was dreaming to be was very difficult for me.
it very, very difficult, and it is interesting what you brought up, a cool point. I wonder which one is worse.
Right,
You could have grown up around a family of sculptors who just are constantly wondering why you're working with iron. You
right.
know, I mean,
We're clay people, damn it.
yeah, yeah. This is a clay household in
This
this
is a
house.
clay household.
Yeah. This is a marble family. What the hell are you doing? The
Right.
beauty of
I,
it is,
I think that is worse. I think that is worse.
I think that might be worse, but it doesn't change the fact that regardless of any side of the hill that you fall on, it's going to have challenges. And it's so unique. We are the sum total of everything that happens and how we respond to it, you know?
Mm.
So any one of these people would have changed your outcome. It's almost like a time travel conversation again. Had that
Right,
Bubba been like, holy shit, this is
right.
amazing. Who knows what you would have ended up doing? You know what I'm saying? You might have gotten it
Yeah.
out of your system and been like, cool, and be doing
And
something
then went
totally
nowhere.
different.
Who knows?
So
I wouldn't have had that fire.
that's right. And that brings me back to the perfectionism thing. What I was saying is, most people, I would say everyone, but most people um, really are stuck on being a perfectionist because they're still trying to prove themselves to someone from their past. And what's true every time, and then Max, you said it's true for you, is we aren't even talking to those people anymore because it's it's not the good people in our lives we're ever trying to prove anything to.
For
We're
sure.
always trying to prove it to the evil, the villain, the naysayer, the critic, right? So
Shadow
this,
artists.
yeah, I mean, this perfectionistic thing, I feel like people need to look at it from a standpoint of, it's not this big evil monster as much as it is just your way of growing from hurt. You know, I've known a lot of really mean people in my life, like a lot of really mean, violent people in my life. None of them were born that way, dude. They were all, that was a response. They got sick and tired of being scared every day as a kid. So they decided to be the biggest monster in the room.
Yeah.
Now they're an adult monster. So those of us that are struggling with perfectionism, we don't need to throw this on the pile of one more thing and beat ourselves up and learn to make friends with this stuff. Accept it. Accept that you are where you are right now, Max, because of every person that criticized you, didn't understand you. Like, what are you doing? What, you wasting your, all of that. That's why
Yeah.
you got all that great stuff hanging on the wall behind you,
Oh,
you know? And without that, we don't know what we would be doing or what we'd be creating, if at all.
Ooh, indeed, just brought up an amazing point. Is like now that you're successful and now that you are recognized for your good work, those people that we've shut out of our life will constantly try to come back and claim it for their own or feed off that.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah. Oh, it's a trip when they
chapter.
come back and they're like, "Oh, you got that from me, didn't you?" Yeah, and you're
Oh,
like, "What?"
taught
You
you
know?
everything I know. It's like, no,
Yeah,
you didn't.
yeah. No, and I went through that with my parents, and my parents only came to one premiere of any movie, documentary, anything I ever made, and I still remember the shock on their face when it was over. And I know they meant it well, but what they said to me was, We can't believe you made that. That was absolutely incredible. You made that?" And I'm standing there going, like, this was like my fifth or sixth movie at this point.
Right.
And that
Oh,
that wounded me in a way that it just stuck with me like, oh my God, the people that love me and I've known the most, they think so little.
right.
But I know for a fact that that's not what they meant. What they literally meant was, holy crap, we're blown away. That's incredible.
Right.
They just overstated it a little bit, right? Um, and so, dealing with these wounds, it's like a splinter. And I know that's a used up concept, but we get splinters all the time. The human
Yeah.
body gets splinters all the time. Most of them we don't even notice. But we find them over time because they will come up to the top of the skin. They will get infected.
Yeah.
So, is a splinter a big deal? No. Leave it, and it becomes a very big deal.
Yeah.
You can lose a finger, you can lose a hand from an infection from something that you left.
It's
And
true.
why do we leave it? It's no big deal. Like nobody breaks their arm and doesn't go to the hospital. But you get a splinter, you're like, I'm a man, and you don't do anything about it. And 2 weeks later, your finger's all swollen, and you've got an infection.
Right.
But it wasn't a big deal. And I want to drive that point home. Creative wounds are a big deal. They're a big deal.
Yeah. How do you recover from them? Like, how do you move on? How do you go? How do you pull that thing out?
It's look at it more as like alchemy. I'm flipping here in my book because she says something I love so much about this. Yep, I got it right here. She talks about turning loss into gains.
Ah,
And
yeah.
yeah, the wound, I know it's not proper English at all, but I like saying turn the loss to a learn. You know, uh, it's trite to say it, but there is no mental thing you can do to get over a wound until you sit with it and you acknowledge it. Now, maybe you acknowledge it by talking to yourself, like I do. Maybe you acknowledge it by journaling or writing. Maybe you create art about it. Maybe you write a story or a script, or maybe you do a piece of art that externalizes it. But this is what we do with kids who've suffered trauma. We help them identify and externalize the enemy that attacked them, the victimizer. And how do we
Yeah.
do that? We don't want them writing a story about them being abused. So we'll have them write a story about an evil villain that wasn't nice to their son. And when you create through story, and you'd be amazed how much these kids start getting this out. All of these problems are not from what happened, they're from how we hold on to them. It's We're just holding on to so much shit, you
Yeah.
know? So how
True.
do I and how do others get rid of it? And I don't mean just creative wounds, but life wounds as a whole. Step one is that it's okay to be hurting. I don't want to hear any of this, old school, pull yourself up by. I'm so sick of that crap. Like, I'm
Ah.
so sick of it. I'm a 47-year-old man. I've heard it my whole life, and I've never
Yeah.
seen it do anything but cause people to die early. It, it's bullshit. We
Yeah.
were not designed. I get a little worked up on these points. Sorry. We were not designed to just absorb. And if you don't believe me, look at the generations before us and look at their death and look at the disease and. So, step one, that freaking hurt. Go cry. Go get upset. Go punch something. Yeah. Go rub some
Rub
dirt
some
on it,
dirt
you
on
dumb
it.
bitch. Yeah, Uh, you know, it's what I teach kids. And it's really hard to teach adults. That's why I teach kids. Sit with it. Just be okay that you got hurt. Just,
Yeah.
man, that hurt. That knocked the wind out of me. Be honest. If you have someone you can talk with, if you have a therapist, a journal, that dude, I got to tell you something, man. That whooped my ass, and I don't know if I even want to write anymore. I'm thinking about giving up art altogether. You've got to start there.
Yeah.
Because if you go straight to the mental exercise, well, I know, da da da, dude. It's none of it works. You're just torturing yourself more. You know, um, it's the alchemy process. We all have heard of alchemy, where you turn base metals into gold, right? Well, there's nothing more base metal than somebody criticizing your creation. That's about as base, low vibration as you can get,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, it's your job as a co creator on this planet to turn that into something. So, the way I was taught to look at it, and this came through an immense amount of pain to learn this, was the clay, ironically, the clay. Throw it on the wheel. There's your insult. There's your wound. Now you can
Yeah.
sit there and look at it. It's spinning, it's just doing that wobble thing around, or you can take the time to shape it into a meaningful thing.
I love that.
Yeah, it's meaning making. So we can kind of start wrapping up a little bit and start answering some of these questions with this point.
Okay. Because yeah, the chat is on
Yeah,
fire.
they're on fire.
Also, thank you so much for being a part of this. This is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. The It's meaning making. You know, I,
Meaning making.
I've been around so many people that have experienced way more trauma than I have. And I know we're not supposed to compare trauma and all that, just
No.
for example. And yet, when they talk about all of their abuse or whatever, they talk about it as like the starting point of greatness. And I'm over here going, well, I can't be great because of these things. And these people are saying, I am great because of these things.
Right.
Only difference between the us. This is not easy to say. It's very painful to hear this. The only difference is the meaning that they associated to their trauma. Now, there's smaller things, right, that we should consider. There's some other things like if they're still in a traumatic, I don't want to over summarize this, but for me, I associated so much rejection and fear to my trauma that I lived in that as an adult. To where other people who've been through much worse, like literally being abducted, people that come out of the sex slave trade and all of that, they'll look you in the eyes and they're not whacked out. They've just had good therapy that's helped them realize that life is gonna dump things on you. You have no control over that. But the
Yeah.
meaning that you give to it makes you either a king or a pauper. And there is nothing else in between. It so but see, if I just said that first, then most people are going to sit around with all these wounds, they're bleeding out, death of 1,000 cuts, and they're going to go, "Oh, I just need to be positive. It didn't hurt that bad." That's
Right.
that's not going to work.
Well, there
Start
lies
with
that toxic positivity that you were talking about a little
That's
bit.
exactly right. Hey, bro, it could always be worse. Like you could get kidnapped again, bro. Like what? Like, are you serious? You see what I'm saying? So you start from the base, alchemy, and you acknowledge the lump of coal or the chunk
Yeah.
of clay, whatever analogy you want to use. And you, over time, as the narrator, as I mean, you're your own Morgan Freeman. You're narrating your own life. It
Right.
was at this time he realized he does not enjoy painting. I
Yeah.
mean, that's you. You get to shape this into something, but it doesn't work unless you first provide space for the feeling, for the emotions of being hurt.
Love
That's
that.
it, man. It it can be as simple as sitting down. You saw the video I sent of what I'm doing with the kids, where
Yeah. Oh, it's
step
excellent.
one, step one, what's the big emotion that you're feeling right now? I'm scared. Okay. It's okay to be scared. Let's tell ourselves it's okay to be scared. And then you walk them through releasing that sense of fear versus rub some dirt on it. Man up. Don't be such a wuss. Don't. It's just
Right.
ridiculous. So I'd like to hear. I haven't read the last several of these, but everyone's been so active. What is this
Yeah.
about?
Oh, they were talking about the Gen X experience.
Ah, yeah. A couple of these comments are reminding me of something, especially the Gen X ones. You were raised on a ranch or a farm, weren't you,
Yeah.
Max?
Yeah. Cattle ranch.
Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying man versus woman. I'm saying the man's man mindset, right? Where you get up before sunrise, you work all day, and it's still not enough. You should have got more done. We got to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think people get confused on this. I'm not saying that approach cannot yield some positive results, because it can,
For sure.
but it's
And
not.
there's merit to the that self discipline, all that stuff.
Yes,
But you can take
yes,
it too far. You can take it way too far.
yeah. And we live in this binary world right now where everything's a one and a zero. We act
Oh,
like
right.
there's nothing in between.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling everybody, let's just sit around and have a cry party and don't create until you feel it. No, you've got to discipline yourself. You've got to take a risk, but you can't get to that place while you're dragging this dead body behind you.
Right.
You know, make peace with some things, even just one thing. If you can just make peace with one comment. My art teacher, eighth grade, failed me because every uh, art assignment I drew it with comic books. And this was 1989. I'm an old dude. And she was like, "This is not art. This is not art." And she said this in front of the whole class. "This is
Oh,
not art." And she failed me. And
brutal.
I did not pick up a pencil. I did not draw again for probably another 15, 17 years. Now, now that our world has been nothing but comic books for 15 years,
Right.
I used to find myself as an adult walking in. I'm with my kids. We're going to go watch Guardians of the Galaxy. And what's running in the back of my mind? My art teacher from an eternity ago. And I'm like, yeah, it's not art, is it? And I still had like this attitude, like I'm proving her wrong.
Right.
I was able to let that go, and most of your teachers, thank you, most of your teachers, especially when we're young, we view them like parents, and most of them are going to let us down in some way. And most of our most of our wounds come from those kind of people and small little comments, not big failures.
Right.
So if and I'll finish saying this. I drew the Green Lantern logo one time when I was a kid. My grandpa came over and he thought it was a doghouse. I cried and this is a true story. I cried and cried
Yeah.
and cried. I cried myself to sleep because he called it a doghouse.
And he meant nothing by it, probably.
No, he was like, "That's a
But it was a
damn
deep
good
hurt.
doghouse," and I'm like, "What?
You saw a
Hell
doghouse.
Jordan's gonna kill you." So instead, you know, uh, what I learned from that is all these years later, that pain that I felt as a young man, I'm afraid that if that hurt that bad,
Yeah.
someone just calling my drawing a doghouse, how horrible is it going to hurt to direct a feature and it's a complete bomb and it has, three tomatoes, right?
Right.
And what cured me of that is I directed a film that was a complete bomb that people's comments were like, "This is an assault on humanity." Like it was one of the worst movies ever made. People literally have listed it in the top 50 worst movies ever made.
Oh my gosh.
It cured me. Like, okay, done. Now, I've got a million reasons why that movie turned out to be a turd, but at the end of the day, guess what? Failing that big hurt just the same as the little. So if you're afraid, if you're afraid that when I was a kid and somebody made fun of my art and it devastated me, how could I ever dream of doing anything even bigger? I'm
Right.
here to let you
It's not a
know
scale. It's
it's
just
not. It's not.
interesting.
It's just pain. It
Yeah.
just hurts, but it's
Just
not a
pain.
scale. Yeah,
Interesting. Well, so might as well go big then.
because you're going to have bigger gains. I'm not talking about working out. You're going to have bigger lessons. You're going to gain more ground, and it's all time to say I'll end. This resonates heavy with me. So
This is good.
originality, and they water it down until they feel like it's acceptable to a large enough of an
Ooh,
audience.
yeah.
That that's the American film system. That's a studio. Okay, that's a studio system logic that you're using with your basket weaving and your ceramics. It doesn't make sense. That's commercial, billions of dollars every year, has nothing to do with your painting.
Yeah.
But we pull these ideas from our environment, this capitalistic approach to art, right? And the fact that if you will just be unique and use your spontaneity and stop your work at an interesting place, you will attract more. And now everyone just, you know, I can go find 10,000 Halloween masks of Freddy and I don't even see it anymore. Scroll, 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 scroll. But I come across somebody who made an
Right.
original art mask, I'm going to stop. And I'm also going to spend more money for it. So the irony here is we're trying to make money by limiting ourselves and squeezing our vision down to where people, are going to want it. And then nobody
Right.
wants it.
Oh,
That's that perfectionism.
that's a really good point. Yeah, just trust your intuition, and go for it.
Yeah.
I love that.
And, people are like, "Oh, just throw caution to the wind." No, just over time, this
Right.
is a muscle that you develop. Think of these actors, think of these directors that keep showing up doing completely different kind of movies. They're risking it every single time. Now, think of the actors and the directors that are doing the exact same content, right? Like you love them, but I'll just use Adam Sandler, wonderful example. Everybody loves Adam Sandler, but he will make 30 straight to Netflix movies and then
Right.
he'll make a movie that wins an Oscar,
Right.
right? And he's explained that. That's his way of keeping himself sharp and continuing to make money. He feels like he makes enough money from the family movies basically and the spy movies and all that kind of stuff that he can
Right.
go and make an uncut gems,
Right.
you know. So it's not just throw caution and run and be wild. There's a logic to this. And
Right.
we're cutting our legs out from under us by working on a project and working on a project and working on, oh, it's not ready. Not ready for what? There's an audience waiting for what you're doing right now, unfinished. People love that work,
It's
you
true.
know.
I do it.
Anyway, we all do. We
Yeah.
all do. And we hide there, dude. Let's be honest. I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
I hide behind, oh, it's not ready. Oh, it's not ready. Oh, it's not right. That's my safe place.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot on, man. God, these are so much fun. I'm just so grateful to be a part of this.
Right.
Because I'm learning a lot. Just about how to deal with my own creativity and what it is to be an artist and the challenges that come with that.
Yeah. I just hoard my joy. That's
Placebo.
awesome.
That's brilliant.
That's a good T-shirt, by the way. I
That's a
hoard my
good
joy.
T-shirt.
Yeah,
I heard my joke.
it's hilarious. Just have a dragon like around
Yeah,
the treasure pot. Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
smog.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great
Well,
spot. Oh,
now typically at this point, I talk about what exercises and all that. At the end of these chapters, and you guys can tell from our conversation, both of these chapters are really, really good. And we skip making in chapter 8, all these different things. Is this week everyone just focus on having a good, solid artist date?
oh,
Like,
I love that.
just have a good, solid, go do something, rejuvenate you, give yourself at least an hour. Um, don't worry about, because, like I said, at this point, we're in the long stretch, and you don't have to do every one of these exercises. I keep reminding people this is a buffet, this is not a diet. This is not
Oh,
eat everything on here. It's just walk by and pick something,
yeah, I
you
like
know?
that.
And
Ooh,
trust your intuition. You're going to find the thing that is going to help you unlock.
I cannot wait to plan myself an epic artist date.
And no, you cannot. A good date doesn't count. That's hilarious.
Ah, oh, yeah. So I'm excited to hear from the Discord what everyone is going to plan on or do for your next artist date.
That's it. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it, buddy. I love
Yeah.
this.
I do too, man. Well,
Man,
as always, thank you for having me, man. I mean, it's a huge trust to take your time and let somebody crack into your wounds and things like that. Not to mention open up your, friends and family that you've made. I feel deeply honored to be
oh,
here, and
I'm
it's
I'm
great.
honored myself. This has been amazing. Also, for everyone that's in the live chat or watching this from 20 years from now,
Yeah,
yeah, thank you for being here too. Like this has been an amazing journey to take kind of together. It's been cool.
yeah, yep, yep.
All
The
right, buddy.
fellowship.
The fellowship.
That's it.
I love it,
All
buddy.
right, man.
Have an excellent evening.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you guys on Discord.
Yeah, see you Discord. Bye bye now.
Uh, See ya.